Hello, clever people, and welcome to my top 5 films so far of 2018. So just recently, we hit the halfway point in the year. It started on July 1st, that is officially where you are halfway through the year, and most people do top 5s around that time because they want to share what their favorite movies of that year were and look forward to movies that were coming out in the next 6 months. And I do think that that's a good idea, and I do think that's something that's interesting to see, and especially after Oscar season to see how something like that changes. But personally, I like to go to the end of July because really, I don't really view August or September really as months where a whole lot of great movies come out, and then it goes into October, November, and December where the movies really get good. But to me, July also feels like the first part of the year to me. When I look back and think about the second half of the year, I always think about August onward, and I feel like July, for me personally, is just clumped into the first half of the year. So I decided that I would do my top 5 films so far this year for being halfway through the year, even though we aren't technically halfway through the year. So far, 2018 has been a great year for film, and it's been 3 years in a row that we've gotten exceptional years for film. 2016 was great. You got La La Land, Moonlight, Manchester by the Sea, Hell or High Water. There were a lot of great movies that came out that year. In 2017, you got Call Me By Your Name, Lady Bird, and a lot of all other great movies that came out. And 2018 seems like a year that's just following it up with even better films. And what I've liked so far about a lot of people's top 5 is that you never get the same order. There have been so many different masterpieces to come out this year that, my number 3 may be your number 1, and your number 5 may be my number 1. And there have been so many different movies, is what I'd say. Stylistically, you haven't gotten the typical dramatic, long take movies, and you haven't gotten the typical lighthearted movies. You've gotten a lot of movies in between depressing and uplifting, and that's just been really promising and really great. So I'm going to start by sharing my top 5 movies of 2018, and then towards the end of the video, I will share the 5 movies that I am most looking forward to for the rest of 2018. So before I go into my top 5, I would like to share 3 honorable mentions, and those movies are Paddington 2, Won't You Be My Neighbor, and Annihilation. Those movies almost made the cut, but they weren't quite there, so I am going to go on to my number 5, which is Blind Spotting. This movie was stylistically amazing. It combined a comedy tone and a drama tone so well, and stylistically it was entertaining, even despite the fact that it took on some serious messages. I went in knowing nothing about the movie, and that turned out to be best because it really was an impressive show for first-time writers and a first-time director. It is a movie that will not be forgot, and it's a movie that I believe will end up in my top 10 at the very least by the end of the year. Number 4 is 8th Grade. I would have expected this movie to be number 1 just by how anticipated I was, and it didn't really end up being what I wanted, but it turns out that was actually better. What I wanted out of this movie was not what it gave me, because I wanted something epic that was going to change middle school films for the rest of the time, and that's not what this movie did, and honestly, realizing after seeing it, that's not what the movie should have been. This movie was just small and personal, and that was the best thing for it. Elsie Fisher was great at depicting an 8th grader today. She did a terrific job at that, and I hope that she's remembered at the Oscars later this year. The just pure acting talent that she showed for a 15-year-old was great, and you could see how she related to the character very well. And the themes are just great. The way that they display the themes so subtly too, that really, if you are in 8th grade, you will identify them pretty quickly, which was cool. There were themes about, a boy in the movie who was kind of awkward, and she didn't really talk to him, and you could kind of tell that she thought that she was better than him, and she didn't want to hang out with people like him. But what was good is that by the end of the movie, you realized that she grew up a bit and realized that's the same thinking that all the popular people have that make her feel so bad. And also, this movie only takes place in a week, and I was nervous about that because I was scared it would be a movie where in a week a character is changed for the rest of their lives. And that's not what happened. Elsie, or I forget, Kayla is the character's name, is the same person as she was a week ago. She just matured a little bit and saw the world in a little bit of a different way. And Bo Burnham didn't paint the picture like everything was okay. He painted it like she was just an 8th grader going through 8th grade pains, and that was really good. Number 3 is Mission Impossible Fallout. The amount of intensity packed into this movie, especially in the last 30 minutes, is insane. The movie just builds and builds and builds to a final 30 minutes that were so tense that I was literally on the edge of my seat. The scope of this movie is just incredible. The cinematographer was amazing at capturing just the perfect shots. And the way that the movie just gets crazier and crazier is amazing. There's a scene with 2 helicopters. It's shown in the trailer, but towards the end of that scene, when it just gets crazier and crazier and more violent and more intense, it just got better and better. And even though you kind of know what the results are going to be, and the movie can be predictable plot-wise, and the plot doesn't stand out, the action in this movie alone is just a spectacle, and it's something that everybody should check out. Coming in at number 2 is Avengers: Infinity War. This was definitely the biggest movie of the year, and it will stay the biggest movie of the year. Even though Black Panther made more than it domestically, this was the biggest movie of the year. It was 10 years in the making. From Iron Man back in 2008 all the way to now, they have been planning and planning to get to this point. And it was amazing. It was basically perfect for what it could have been. It fully realized what it was, but it never really lost sight of what made these Marvel movies entertaining in the first place. It could have easily gone a pretentious route and became overly self-serious, but they kept the comedy. They kept the same bare roots of the Marvel movies. Yes, you can call it formula, and sure, it might be formula, but it kept those bare roots and told a story that was just amazing. It was an amazing release after 10 years, and the ending, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm surprised, but I still won't spoil it, but the ending was shocking, and it's a shock that is still felt to this day, and for that reason, Avengers: Infinity War is my number 2. And my number 1 is a movie I didn't get to review, and it took me a while to get to see it, but I did get to see it. It was 40 miles outside of the town that I was at. It was an hour drive there and an hour back, but it was so worth it, and that number 1 movie is First Reformed. This movie is haunting. From the moment it starts to the moment it ends, it reminded me a lot of Werckmeister Harmonies and just other films like that are the aspect ratio is small and the movie feels small and it's a quiet movie and it doesn't have a huge scope. It's not trying to do anything amazing. It's just telling a story, and the story is haunting. A few people have called it pretentious, and that's a reasonable claim for it, but personally, I didn't mind that. I thought that Paul Schrader gave just an amazing story, a haunting story, and it's completely unpredictable. That's what I liked most about this movie. The moment it starts, you kind of think that you know the way that the plot is going, and you don't. Just in the first, I think, 15 minutes, there's a shock that I didn't know was coming, that I couldn't have foreseen coming. And then from there, it just gets more and more unpredictable and crazy. And the end of this movie is the type of ending that you never forget. I've heard that a couple people didn't like it, but the movie's main theme, it was something that I didn't see the movie ended up having. And it's a slow burn movie, so the ending really has to be a burn. And I was expecting it to go one way that they had built up to the entire movie, and it didn't. And that was so incredible. First Reformed, if you haven't checked it out, I'm sure it's coming out on Blu-ray soon. Check it out as of right now. It is my favorite movie of this year. Alright, and as promised, I would give my top 5 most anticipated movies for the next 5 months. And the 5 movies, I'm just going to go in order from 5 to 1. I'll maybe say a couple things about them. But number 5 is The Other Side of the Wind. This is an Orson Welles movie that he never got to finish, that got recreated and is being re-released in theaters. And I'm really excited to see it. I'm curious about what it's going to be. And it's just going to be really cool to see a movie directed by Orson Welles coming out today. It's supposed to be impossible, but I'm interested to see how it works out. Number 4 is The Favorite. This is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, who directed The Lobster and Killing of the Sacred Deer. And The Lobster is a movie I liked a lot, but Killing of the Sacred Deer was one of my favorite movies of 2017. It was haunting, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with another movie. Number 3 is The Old Man and the Gun. This is directed by David Lowery, who directed A Ghost Story, which was also one of my favorite movies of last year. And the trailer for this was just great. It was a really entertaining trailer, and I'm excited to see the way that this movie goes. It's starring Robert Redford, and I believe that he is going to be a big contender for Best Lead Actor just looking at the trailer. Number 2 is First Man. Of course, I'm excited for this one. This is Damien Chazelle's first endeavor into a movie that does not have to do with jazz. And he is telling the story of Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, and it stars Ryan Gosling in it. And I got to see, before Mission Impossible Fallout, I got to see the IMAX preview, and that was just stunning. It was some of the best footage I've seen all year, and I thought that it was really impressive, the way that it showed the moon, and the way that it was kind of doing a point of view with Ryan Gosling stepping down and going on the moon. It was just stunning footage, and that made me even more hyped for the movie. And while most years First Man would be my most anticipated, my number 1 has to be If Beale Street Could Talk. That is coming to us from Barry Jenkins, who directed Moonlight in 2016, my favorite movie from that year, one of my favorite movies of all time, and it really did kind of shape my view of film. I just wrote a screenplay for a movie that I'm planning on shooting soon, and I just rewatched Moonlight for the first time in a while, and I realized just how much of Jenkins' style just influenced me and the way that I view film and the way that I view the films that I want to make now, and I really did enjoy that. So we have an exciting rest of the year to look forward to. Already this year has been great. You've gotten a lot of movies in the 8 to 9 range, 8 out of 10 to 9 out of 10, which are the movies that I really do love, and I think that we could get a lot of other movies entering that range. Overall, 2018 has been a great year for film, and I believe it will continue to be a great year for film. So that concludes my video. So what are your most anticipated movies of 2018, or what are your favorites thus far? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.